Hi, welcome to the Thank You Notes podcast. I'm Travis McVeigh, an anesthesiologist from Dallas, Texas, and I love Thank You Notes so much, I made them into a podcast. Today, I'm sharing my chat with Dr. Ben Schmidt, or as hundreds of thousands of people on the internet know him as, Doc Schmidt. His TikToks and YouTube videos have been seen by millions. We talk about how he got started with the videos, what happened when he went viral, and his mindset going into accepting his first job fresh out of his GI fellowship. This was recorded a few months ago, so he has been working there for a while. My favorite thing about this episode is that Ben said his mission is to try and humanize doctors. So I made it my mission to try to humanize him from the wig-wearing funny guy into a real dude. Let's get to my chat with Dr. Ben Schmidt. All right, welcome to the Thank You Notes podcast. I'm joined by my very special guest, Dr. Ben Schmidt. Thank you for jumping on here with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
This is the Thank You Notes podcast. I ask this to everybody. Do you write thank you notes?
I do, but definitely not as often as I should. I think it's really only for like big events. I think the last time was like after my wedding, like writing thank you notes for all the wedding gifts. And then before that, probably like fellowship interview, but probably should do it more often, I would say.
Yeah. What was the last thank you note that you wrote?
Honestly, it probably was for my wedding, like wedding gifts to friends and family for the gifts they got me for my wedding. So that was like 4 years ago, I want to say. So it's been a while.
So you just got out of training. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I just finished less than a month ago, actually.
Mm-hmm. How does it feel? Is it weird? Is it what's going through your mind?
It has been very weird. I was telling people, although obviously it's a huge accomplishment, it was a little anticlimactic finishing fellowship was compared to finishing residency, just because it kind of fades out in terms of responsibility. Whereas residency, I feel like it was going 100 miles an hour up until the last day. But then when I kind of sit back and have time to reflect in this couple of weeks that I've taken off, it's very surreal just to think about how much I've changed in these kind of 10 years since starting medical school. It's very cool just to see how far I've gone. It hasn't really hit me yet because I haven't started my job yet, my post-training job. I'll be starting that in a couple of weeks, but it feels nice. Definitely feel a sense of accomplishment, I guess you could say.
I distinctly remember the first day after I completed residency, and I woke up and I lived within walking distance to the hospital I trained at. And I saw the hospital, and it kind of blew my mind that there were surgeries going on, and I wasn't putting people to sleep there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how could this place function without me? But now that they just keep rocking and rolling without me, I was just a drop in the bucket. It was very strange.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I actually I don't think I've gone by the hospital that I did fellowship at since graduating. So maybe that's part of my problem. I think that'll definitely be an interesting moment when I go by there for the first time.
Now, in your new job, will you be working in the same hospital, or are you going somewhere different? Or
no, I'll be going somewhere different. Same city, but I'm joining a private practice with a company called Esse Health. They're kind of like an independent company that kind of supports independent physician groups. So it's kind of like a hybrid between the kind of hospital-based model and a truly independent private practice.
Very nice. And is that why you chose that group? Because you like that hybrid between the two practices, or what was it that drew you to this job?
Yeah, that was definitely a big piece of it. I kind of did interviews with sort of each of the ends of the spectrum in terms of the hospital-based system, academic system, and this system. And I liked the idea of being independent, having some increased level of control over my job. But another part kind of unique to me is that they were really excited about my social media presence, and they actually wanted me to incorporate that into the job and work with them, and even to some degree help them with marketing in the sense of like including my coworkers in my videos for some of the videos and those sorts of things. So I thought that was a really fun thing, and it was cool to just see them acknowledge that and be excited about it too.
Your social media, that actually helped you land this job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
all
to
of
some
these
extent.
funny videos.
Yeah, they really liked the kind of the message that I'm putting out there, and how they think that I could kind of fuse that with their message and their practice model to kind of help more people hear about different types of medical practice models.
I want to get back to that, but I want to make sure that I ask you something. We're doing I guess, a series here on this show, and we're talking about thanking the people that trained us. So I was wondering if there was somebody that stood out from your medical training who acted as a mentor to you, and what kind of lessons he or she passed on to you.
Yeah, I think whenever someone asks me that, the first thing that comes to mind is someone from my medical school, actually. So a long time ago, relatively speaking, I guess, Dr. Hamoud is his name. He was an advanced GI at the University of Missouri, or he still is, at the University of Missouri, where I did my medical school. And I credit him with kind of getting me interested in GI in the first place. He was the person who did a lot of the M2, the second year medical school lectures about GI and GI physiology. And he was just kind of had this infectious enthusiasm for GI. Some people were scared of him because he kind of taught with like the Socratic method, where he'd be like giving a lecture and he'd be like listing liver enzymes, and then he'd suddenly pause and like point to someone in the audience and be like, "What is this? What is the diagnosis?" So it was a little bit intimidating at first, but I really just was captivated by how he would interpret these problems and these liver enzymes. And then I kind of continued to work with him. I shadowed him initially as like a second year and early third year, and then I worked with him more extensively as a fourth year. And he was just very helpful for me in just kind of realizing the importance of passion and enthusiasm for your work and how much of an impact that could make. He was the only advanced endoscopist at this hospital. University of Missouri is relatively a smaller institution, so he was effectively always on call, but I literally never heard him complain about that. And he was always happy to help, and he was never grumpy, never annoyed. He was just had this intense enthusiasm. And I think that really went a long way, because in medical training, there's a lot of people who have kind of that opposite personality, I feel like, in the sense that any minor inconvenience or any thing that makes them do extra work just kind of ruins their day, and they spread that to everyone. He was sort of the opposite of that. So I try as much as I can to keep that personality going. And then, alongside that, the way he was able to show me the field of GI really solidified my interest along the way.
That's awesome. I think there's also a generational component to that, because when I talk to the people that trained me and older physicians, they were on call Q2. They ended up being the only endoscopist, the only person that can do a C-section or whatever in a 100-mile radius. And you don't hear a lot of the complaining that you do with, people in our generation. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how they have that patience. I don't know how they have that fortitude. It's
remarkable, for sure. Admirable too.
All right. I want to get to your social media feed. So you are Doc Schmidt, and you're on Instagram. Are you on any of the other platforms?
Yeah, I've actually built followings on TikTok and on YouTube, and to a smaller extent, Twitter and Facebook as well.
Okay. And go ahead and brag a little bit. How many followers do you have on TikTok or Instagram, or what's your big achievement there?
I've got on TikTok, I have just a little bit under 500,000 followers, and on YouTube, I have about 550,000. So it was just crazy to say. I kind of came up in the YouTube generation trying to be famous on YouTube. So it's very surreal to be at that level. And then I have probably between the other three platforms, I have about 200,000 between Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Wow. And was there a video that put you over the top or really put you on the map, or has it been like a gradual thing, or how did this come about?
I think it was fairly, it wasn't a singular video, but it was fairly quickly that I went viral, so to speak. I had a week off in October of 2020, and that was kind of when, I think it was Delta, one of the waves of COVID, where I had a week off, but I couldn't go anywhere. My wife was working, so I've always enjoyed making videos as a kind of a pastime, but not necessarily in this medical capacity as I've done with this platform. So I kind of decided to try to fuse those two and make some medical skits, medical comedies. And I had that week off with nothing really else to do. So that allowed me to make a bunch of videos at once, which I think there's some advantage to that, to quantity over quality initially. But I think the first video I had that really went viral is still one of the videos that I'm most proud of. That's kind of making fun of it. It's an interaction between a physician and a mechanic. And the physician is like, bringing his car in to get his oil changed. And the interaction with the mechanic, there's a very strong allegory between how physicians act. And now this physician is being treated in the same way in terms of, not knowing how much it's going to cost, not knowing how long the wait time is going to be, not having the records from prior treatments and those sorts of things. And people really responded to that. And it hit, 10,000 views after a couple of days, and it hit 1 million views after a couple of weeks.
Wow. So what would you say, like, what's the message that you're trying to get across? Is there a mission statement for Doc Schmidt?
Yeah, I think it's something that to some extent has morphed a little bit. When I first started, I was more just kind of having fun and trying to have an outlet, for lack of a better word, trying to, entertain people, but also educate them. But I think what it's morphed into and what videos of mine have kind of resonated with the most people is that I'm aiming to humanize doctors a little bit and show people, both patients and medical trainees or pre-med people as well. I think that doctors are real people. We're not just robots that diagnose people. We make mistakes. We have fears. We have regrets. We think things are funny. We think things are sad. And I think that even though it's a pretty simple message, I think that's lost on a lot of people, and especially people who are not around doctors at all in their private social lives. They kind of can be intimidated by doctors. And I think to some people, hopefully I can show people that doctors don't need to be intimidating, and doctors are looking to help you and looking to make things better for you. And then for pre-meds, I think just showing what the process can like, and hopefully to some degree an unfiltered look, in the sense that I don't shy away from the bad parts. I want to show that, sometimes I struggle, and sometimes I even in training, there were times where I regretted doing it just because it was so hard for that temporary time. So I want to be as transparent as possible and showing just the human side of being a physician.
I've been trying to catch up on your feed over the past couple of weeks, and there's definitely a vibe. It's definitely somebody who's going through residency, somebody who's just out of medical school, and it kind of seems like a personal journal. And it seems like when you have these experiences, that you go ahead and you run home and make the video because there's a guttural reaction that happens. The first time that you have a patient lie to you, you have a patient scream at you, you have an interaction with a nurse or somebody else from the hospital, and all of that makes it into your feed. So is this like a personal journal of your training?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had so many instances where I could have, like, kind of, as you alluded to, something unusual or something wild happen to me, and have this outlet to immediately make it into a video that people can see and hopefully relate to and have some sort of response to. I do that a lot. I kind of have a backlog as well, because I started this feed as a fellow. So I had already completed med school and residency, but of course I kind of have a backlog of these stories that stick with you. But then the majority of it has been fellowship stories, just because they're happening real time. We have a liver service at our hospital that fellows and residents staff together. And it's very common that I'll make a video, and then a couple of days later, the residents are texting me asking if the video is in relation to this specific instance that we experienced together. And I'm always like, yes, it was in direct response to that.
One thing I really like about your feed is that you're not shy about taking on controversial subjects, such as like nursing scope of practice creep, mid-levels, and how to deal with them. You'll even get in the comments and mix it up with people too. Like, why do you delve into those areas when you know that you're going to get a lot of blowback?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I do like to make some videos in these more controversial areas. And I think, but there's a few reasons. I think that the style of video that I make, a lot of times I try to make more skit videos if I can. Sometimes I just do direct talk to camera, but in making a skit, sometimes I think I can make a point in a different way than some people have before. But I think a big part of what social media is and what this is a way to exchange ideas and kind of put your opinions out there based on your perspective. And that's a big part of, that's another, I guess, mantra, I guess, of my platform as well. Just the importance of recognizing different perspectives in healthcare, but also in life. So I think that by delving into these topics and showing my perspective, I can kind of maybe help mediate things a little bit. And that leads into why I like to get into the comments. Part of it is just because, I think it's fun to interact with people that are enjoying my videos or maybe not enjoying my videos. But it allows me to be a little bit more nuanced. When I'm making a skit, I have to make a really tight script, and I can't necessarily fit everything in that I want to. So I can kind of elucidate things as needed. In terms of situations that I shy away from, or how I've changed, I guess I should also point out that I feel like I've become a lot more conservative in the sense that I try to be more open, and I try to be a lot more kind of accepting to everyone's perspective, because I think that's the big thing that I've learned along the way going through medical training is it's always a shade of gray, any issue. Like, for instance, I made that video that I think you're alluding to where I had talked about how NPs and MDs talk about each other, where it's very common in the medical field to, someone tell a story about a bad experience with an NP. But that's such an extreme, and using that as evidence of anything isn't really useful in terms of saying, like, because of this one bad person, we shouldn't allow these types of people to work in this field, like NPs, meaning. And I think that because you can always find an example of a bad MD in the same way, and that doesn't mean that MDs shouldn't work in one field. So I think that for the most part, I'm trying now to help people recognize that we really need to see the shades of gray with any issue in medicine. And that's hopefully what I can do with the comments too, is to try to kind of moderate these discussions to help people realize that.
I've watched some of these videos, and I think specifically I watched one today. You had some nurses talking about working 3 straight, and I think you were the fellow, and then you had to work 10 straight to get 2 days off. And everybody's getting on to you they say you're bagging on these nurses, but you're actually just trying to show that we all have our ordeals that we go through. And you're not saying that nurses have it easy, and you're not saying that doctors have it rough. It's just that we all have bad stretches of schedules. And
exactly. That came out of that essentially literally happened to me. I was just kind of like walking through a hallway. I exaggerate a little bit. I wasn't personally in the middle of 10 days in a row when I overheard it, but it was more just, it made me think that it's just think about how, and that honestly was kind of a real world example of what I mean in the sense of shades of gray and being extreme with your opinions. It's just think about how your kind of situation is compared to the greater field that you're in. So try to be mindful of other people's schedules. And right, exactly. Just because you have this one difficult stretch doesn't mean that it's harder or less hard than another person, but we're all, having difficulty. So just try to be mindful of what is challenging other people in your field.
Well, the thing that gets me in healthcare is that if you want to go there and complain, there's always somebody that has it worse than you. Like if I want to go there and complain about a surgeon taking too long, well, there's a tech up on the floor that's wipes butts for 8 hours a day. And
exactly.
How do you think he or she feels about me saying these things? So especially in a hospital, somebody's always, getting the short end of the stick, and it's going to be your turn eventually. So
exactly. And it all comes down to recognizing that. And I think that's because what I've prided myself on is when, like, for example, I have a nurse character and there are nurses in the comments saying, I don't know how you captured how real that is, how real the nursing experience is. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is use my experience as a fellow, but around nurses and working closely with them to try to show that I understand as much as I can the perspectives of these other people working alongside me in the hospital.
The other video I watched today that I really liked was you were taking an ethics test, and the options were, it was like the prompt was a family member wants you to grab some water for their family member that's having surgery. Your options are A, call the police, B, ignore them and continue doing and looking busy or something. It's all these options. And then D, call an ethics consult, which was always in there. And E, it was, clearly explained to them the risks of the NPO and anesthesia, et cetera, et cetera. It always drove me insane on those ethics, because it was just more of a show that we're putting these students through these ridiculous tests, and we don't really even care if they learn anything.
Exactly. It was more just like, well, there's always a mix. It was like those questions where it's like, are you just a decent human being? And can you even interpret these? You could even just tell by reading the choices without even reading the prompt for some of these questions what the answer was. versus the ones where they just, every choice is like almost exactly the same. And you're like, I don't know. I don't know the nuance of this that you're getting at, but it's not helpful either way.
And they always have a low threshold for calling an ethics consult. Just, hey guys, we're here.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think I called one ethics consult my entire medical training.
Yeah. You also do a lot of collaborations on your feed with other like notable social media people from healthcare. Are you guys like in a group chat, or how do you come across these people?
Yeah, we do have like a WhatsApp group chat for a lot of us, the people that are on YouTube primarily. But it's been kind of an interesting journey because it's for the most part that WhatsApp group chat came about relatively recently in the grand scheme of things. For the most part, it's been me. Well, the first time it was someone reached out to me, and that was the first time I realized that you could even do this, and that kind of inspired me to reach out to other people. And then it sort of became a snowball when people realized that I, did collaborations. Then they were more amenable to the idea. Then I could show examples of my prior collaborations, and it was helpful. Whenever I do a collaboration, I take it upon myself to write the script and kind of do all the work, just to kind of bring something to the table in terms of if it's someone who is more established in the space than I am. But as I grew and became bigger in the space, it became a fun way to reach more people, but also reach more people in the sense of audience, but also just meet these other creators and learn about how they've been approaching both the actual content creation, but also how they've been navigating other aspects of it, and also how they've been mitigating the difficulty of being a content creator while also being in medical training. So it's been very interesting. I have virtual friends, and I've even met a couple of them in person along the way, who are at each stage of training. Like NDMD is someone who's in medical school currently, whereas like Jake Goodman, MD, is a psychiatry resident currently. Dr. Glockenflecken, who everyone knows, I'm sure, has been an attending for some time. So it's fun to be able to interact with all these different levels too.
Yeah. Where do you hope the feed is in like 5 years? Like what are your hopes for Doc Schmidt?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm at a little bit of a crossroads right now where I'm trying to answer that question for myself too, because I am sort of, I think a big part of my page thus far has been the medical training experience. And now obviously I'm finished with that. Not to say that there's not, of course, going to be a lot more learning as I go through my first year as an attending. But I think I just want to continue to be able to reach people with regards to teaching both about GI, but also about the practice of medicine. So now I think I can offer additional information and additional education to kind of late residents and fellows about what attending life is like. And now I think the other element that I've started to get into a little bit more is I want my videos, want to be able to combat misinformation more and continue to do that. So I think I just want to be able to continue to make videos consistently that are both going to be able to educate, hopefully entertain a little bit, and then combat misinformation. So not necessarily a big change for me. I think the main change will just be what the content is like in the sense of being an attending versus being a medical trainee. I'm not necessarily someone who's looking to turn this into like a massive business or something. I'm a little bit unique in that for a lot of people who are medical content creators, these videos that they're making are a means to an end of trying to gain an audience to maybe, do public speaking or do TV or something like that. But for me, I've always enjoyed making videos and editing videos. And I did that well before I was Doc Schmidt. So for me, I, to some extent, feel like I've made it, and it's more, I just want to try to sustain what I've done and adapt as my life changes to continue doing that.
Yeah, I think it's going to change as your life changes, as your family changes, as your living situation changes, and it's just going to be it's going to continue the personal diary, and me and hundreds of thousands of other people are along for the ride.
I appreciate that. Absolutely.
So I wrote you a thank you note. In here it says, "Dear Ben or Doc Schmidt, thank you for all that you are promoting through the Doc Schmidt Instagram and TikTok feeds. it's refreshing to see somebody combat misinformation and get into complex topics such as nursing scope of practice and relationships with nurses. You never pull punches, you're always fair, and you try to make people laugh. And I think we doctors need to focus more on that, on how we are presenting ourselves to our patients and being healers and being teammates with our patients rather than just preaching medicine to them. I hope you continue to do this in the future. Thank you for doing this, and also congratulations on your new position. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's really awesome to hear, because
I'm a fan.
I'm glad
man.
you got that on. Thank you. That's
Uh,
great. I mean, I'm just glad that you were able. I feel like a lot of what you got out of my videos is exactly what I'm hoping for people to get out of them. So I appreciate that.
all right, so have you brought a thank you note for us, Ben?
I have. I wrote a thank you note kind of to a group more than an individual person, to the endoscopy nurses that I've worked with over the 3 years of medical school, or of medical school, of fellowship.
Yeah.
So, dear endoscopy nurses, thank you for all your help over the last 3 years. Your assistance during endoscopies has helped me immensely become more comfortable during procedures and has helped me gain independence. Your help with providing abdominal pressure to help me navigate tortuous colons, and your willingness to adjust the position of countless unconscious overweight patients in the name of helping me complete a procedure has been invaluable. Your energy and positive attitudes have made endoscopy fun, even in the early months when I was overwhelmed and confused and rarely completed the procedure without assistance. While my attendings have, of course, taught me most of my endoscopy skills, your insight and input has helped shape me into the endoscopist that I am today. I wish I could bring you all along with me to my next job to continue helping me, but as a surrogate, I'll cherish what you've taught me along the way. Thank you, Ben.
Wow. Yeah, the nurses, especially in training programs, they see you, crawl, walk, and run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they take a special point of pride in seeing you open your wings and fly out of the nest.
I agree. Definitely. And GI, I think that accelerates just because of how closely you work with nurses in endoscopy. So you gain much or very close relationships with them as they can kind of, like I said in the note, kind of help you fly a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. So you start your new job in a few weeks?
Yeah, August 1st will be my first day.
What are you most looking forward to, and what are you most anxious about?
I think that maybe even the same thing. I think I'm looking forward to the independence, in the sense that I'll have the efficiency and be able to kind of take even more ownership of my patients. But at the same time, of course, I think that's also what I'm most anxious about. Maybe the distinction is I'm excited about the independence in the office setting, the clinical setting, and seeing patients in the clinic. But on the endoscopy side, just the anxiety of doing procedures truly independently for the first time, where I'll, have to kind of struggle along a little bit, I'm sure, at the beginning before getting completely comfortable with that true independence.
Yeah. So do you have a block of patients like waiting for you, or you just have to wait, or
No,
how's
I
that going to
will.
happen?
Yeah, I'm fortunate in that the group I'm joining already has 3 GI docs and 3 NPs that are, as of now, they've been kind of juggling the extra patients from a physician who retired a little over a year ago. So I'm going to kind of take over his patients, and then kind of they're all just going to equally distribute the new ones as they come in. But I've been told that I already have a full schedule. I don't have access to my schedule yet, but I've been told I'll be busy. Yeah, exactly.
Don't look.
Exactly.
All right, Ben, we're going to wrap things up here. I have a last question for you. You just got back from a whirlwind tour of Europe. What is the best thing you saw and the best thing you ate?
Ooh, that's a good question. I went to several European cities. I went to London. I went to Brussels, Bruges, which is a smaller city in Belgium, and Amsterdam. I'm going to answer what I ate first. The best thing I ate was a chocolate waffle in Bruges, Belgium. It was a Belgian waffle that had like melted milk chocolate on top with strawberries on top of that. You might have seen a picture of it. I can't remember if I posted one, but it was truly one of the best dessert I've ever eaten, for sure. I still kind of think about it. And I think Oh, it's tough. The best thing I saw, I think, was also in Bruges, interestingly. So clearly I need to go back here. There's this amazing bell tower that was built, I want to say, in like the year 900, initially. Some absurdly old age, maybe 1,000 or something like that. But it's just this very unique kind of architecture because of how old it is. And you can climb up it, but of course there's no elevator or anything. It's like 400 stairs to the top. So seeing it from below and then climbing it and seeing it from the top was a lot of fun. If anyone's ever seen the movie In Bruges, it's featured heavily in that movie, a major plot point in that movie. So you should see it if you haven't, but that I think elevated it for me because that's one of my favorite movies. So it was very cool to see it in real life.
Did you take the kid with you?
No, we left her with the grandparents.
Oh, lucky you. Yeah.
So it was a true vacation.
That's awesome. Why did you choose London, Bruges, and Amsterdam?
I've always been interested in British culture. I kind of love British movies. I love British accents. So I've always been interested to go to London. Amsterdam, I actually have relatives that live outside of Amsterdam, so I was able to kind of see them alongside visiting Amsterdam and kind of retrace some of my heritage steps. And then honestly, Brussels was just a means to get to Bruges because I've always wanted to visit it because I love that movie so much, In Bruges. And it's just kind of in between. It worked perfectly because it's sort of in between London and Amsterdam on the train routes that they have. So it just worked out.
Very cool. All right, Ben, Doc Schmidt, thank you for joining me today. Best of luck with the new job. Best of luck with the feed. And thank you again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It was tons of fun.
Wow. I want to thank Ben for taking time away from his wife and family and social media obligations to chat with me. I really enjoyed that. He is still pumping out videos on his social media accounts. I will have links to all of those in the show notes. Please give him a follow. Please like, rate 5 stars, review, subscribe, tithe, and pledge your loyalty to this podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Please visit the website and send in your own thank you note. I might feature it on the show. Email me at thankyouNotesPod@gmail.com. Follow the show wherever you get your social media fix. Links to all of those are also in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.